Students, welcome to the video tutorial of Informatics Practices for class 11th. Today we'll be discussing the fifth chapter, that is the flow of control, and that is the first part of this video lecture for this chapter 5. So first of all, let's see what is the content of this chapter, what the things which we'll be studying in this chapter. So first we'll be studying about the introduction part, that what is the relevance of this flow of control, why we are studying this. Then the second thing will be the types of statements in Python. Okay, what are the different types of statements which are available in Python programming, which can be used at the particular need of the statements. Then third, we'll be studying about the statement flow control, and then we'll be studying about the if statements of Python. And inside this if statement, we'll be also studying about the if else statement, the if elif statements, and the nested if statements. Okay. First of all, just remember these names, okay? It is not necessary that you are knowing these all already, okay? So whenever we'll be discussing these things, I'll be covering those topics accordingly, okay? Also, we'll be discussing about the nested if statements inside this, the if statements of Python. Next will be the repetition of the task. That means why we need to repeat some task and what is the necessity of those things and what happens if we don't repeat it, okay? Next, we'll be studying about the range function, how to use the range function and what is the relevance of this range function in Python programming. And next will be the iteration and looping statements. Inside this, we'll be studying about the for loop and the nested loops. Okay, so this will be your outline for this chapter. What are the contents which you have to study in this chapter? Okay, so beginning with the introduction part first. So generally a program executes its statement from beginning to end, but not many programs execute all their statements in a strict order from beginning to end. That means whenever we are talking about a programming language, the programming language involves the program to go from the top to bottom, that is from beginning to end. Okay, but it is not a strict follow order. Okay, depending upon the programming situations and the programming controls, the program can be executed in the particular set of order. Okay, that means programs depending upon the need can choose to execute one of the available alternatives or even repeat a set of statements. That means it is possible that a certain set of statements is being repeated 2 or 3 or 5 times or multiple times. Okay, so that is totally dependent upon the strict need of the programming and how the programming console has been created. Okay, to perform their manipulative miracles, program needs tools for performing repetitive actions and for making decisions. Obviously, whenever program has to make some decisions, okay, so it has to follow some pattern, that in which this program is going to follow the order. That means uh, certain set of elements have to be repeated or not, okay, and which statement has to be taken first, which statement has to be taken the second one. And also Python of course provides such tools by providing statements to attain so such statements are called programming control statements. Okay, since these statements are controlling the flow of the program, we say that these statements are known as program control statements. In this chapter we'll be discussing about the functionalities of these program control statements in detail. Okay, so first let's start with the selection statement, if and later iteration statements for is discussed. Okay, so for we'll be discussing later on. First we'll be discussing about if. So let's see what are the types of statements. Types of statements in Python is having these terms. First one is the empty statement, second is the simple statement, and third is the compound statement. Okay, now let's see what is the things which are involved in the statements, what actually a statement is. So the statements are the instructions given to the computer to perform any kind of action. That means if you want the system to perform any action, okay, so for performing that action, instruction has to be given to the computer. So these instructions are in the form of the statements. Okay, so the statements are the instruction given to the computer to perform any kind of action, be it data movements, be it making decisions, or be it repeating actions. That means the decision can be of any kind. Okay, any kind of action can be taken. Let it be like data movements like if you have to swap some values, you have to add some values, you have to subtract some values, all those things will be treated under this data movements. Okay, decision making means if you have to check whether this element is greater than this element is less than this, or this element is equivalent to this. Okay, so for doing all those types of operation also you have to give some statements, you have to induce some statements in the Python programming. Okay, and also the repeating actions means that only we were, just we have discussed that sometimes there may be a need to repeat the statements repeatedly. That means if you have created the first statement and you want the second statement to be the same as the first statement, and it may be the case that the certain set of statements been repeated multiple times. Okay, so that is known as the repeating actions. Okay, and the statements from the smallest executable unit within a Python program. Okay, so all these statements form the smallest executable unit within a Python program. That means all these statements individually are the small executable unit, and since all the statements are have been combined together to create a whole program, so you can say that the statements are forming the smallest executable unit. Okay, Python statements can belong to one of the following three types. Already we have discussed the three types are empty statement, the simple statement, and the compound statement. So simple statement is basically the single statement, one line of state. Okay. Now let's see what are the different types of statements here. In empty statement, that is the null statement. The simplest statement is the empty statement. That is a statement which does nothing. Okay, from the name also you can understand you are saying that null statement or the empty statement. That means in this statement we are not going to perform any task. This statement is not used for any logical action. Only it is to be implemented in the programming so that the flow of the program remains unaltered. Okay, if you want the program to work fine and there is such a situation where you don't need to do anything, only just need to pass it to the next line, so in that condition you will be using this empty statement or the null statement. Okay, the first thing is the null statement, and how we are going to use it, this is the pass. This pass you have to use in the programming language, so in the programming part, so that you can emphasize this null statement. Okay, wherever Python encounters a pass statement, Python does nothing and moves to the next statement in the flow of control. So whenever any sparse statement is encountered by the Python, then what it does, it will do nothing at that point, only just it will move to the next statement. Okay, a pass statement is useful in those instances where the syntax of the language requires the presence of a statement, but where the logic of the program does not. Okay, got it? That only I was discussing, that a pass statement is useful in those tenses where the syntax of the language requires the presence of a statement. That means according to the syntax, if you are going, there must be a presence of a statement. Statement must be there which allows the program to be correct in the form of syntax. Okay, but there may be a case that at that condition you don't need any logical solution. Okay, so in that situation we will be inducing a pass state. Okay, so we may see it in loops and their bodies. We don't have to discuss here that how we'll do it. Whenever the programming part will be there, I'll be discussing that in details. Okay, so right now you just remember this thing, that whenever we are issuing an empty statement or another statement, it is only the part of the program to make the flow of the control, but it is not going to do anything logically in the program. Okay, its presence is required to make the flow of the program. The next statement is the simple statement. Any single executable statement is a simple statement in Python. That means if you are going to issue any single executable statement, executable means it should run. Okay, and single, you are already knowing that only one statement is required. So any single executable statement in a simple statement in Python, for example, following is a simple statement in Python, and this following is this one, this statement, name is equals to input your name. Okay, it's a simple statement and a single statement. Okay, and what this statement is doing, it is taking the input of your name. Okay, another example for simple statement is print name. So individually this statement and this statement are the single statements. Okay, and it is also simple statement. So you can say a simple statement is basically a single executable statement in Python. Okay. Now the next statement is the compound statement. What is a compound statement? A compound statement represents a group of statements executed as a unit. Again, you can go by the meaning. The name compound means a mix-up, okay? Or you can say which has been collectively shown, okay? That is a compound. So a compound statement represents a group of statements executed as a unit. That means more than three, four, or multiple statements are there, and they are treated as a single unit. So in that case, you will consider it as a compound statement. So the compound statements of Python are written in a specific pattern as shown below. Let's see what is the pattern. The pattern will tell you that compound statement header, intended body containing multiple simple or compound statements. Okay, that is the syntax. Okay, don't worry about the syntax if you're not clear with this right now, because when we will be discussing the examples, you will be easily able to understand what the syntax symbolizes. Okay, so basically what it is saying that certain set of header is required for the compound statement, and then the intended body containing multiple simple or compound statements. That is, it will be showing you the header, that what this compound statement is about, and this will contain the multiple lines which will be required to be taken as a single unit. Okay, so this is the intended body containing multiple simple and or compound statements. Okay, now a compound statement has, first thing again, a header line which begins with a keyword and ends with a colon. So whenever you are going to use the header, you have to put a colon here. Okay, so the header line could be anything. Okay, depending upon which type of compound statement you are using. So whatever the compound statement is there, it should have a header line and should end with a colon. Okay, that only it is mentioned that which begins with a keyword, and also the header should be a keyword. Okay, and should begin with a keyword and ends with a colon. Next is the body, that is consisting of one or more Python statements, each intended inside the header line. All statements in the body are at the same level of indentation. So indentation, you are already knowing, we are talking about the gap. So here you can see the compound statement is starting from here, this part, and the body has been started from this part. So there is a gap between this. This is the gap, and this gap is known as the indentation. And rest all of the statements which you are going to write in the compound statement will be starting from here itself. Okay, that means the gap of this to this should be maintained. Okay, this is the gap and this is known as the indentation. Getting it? Now let's move forward. The statement flow control. Now we are talking about the statement flow control. In a program, statements may be executed sequentially, selectively, or iteratively. Every programming language provides constructs to support sequence selection or iteration. Now what we are saying, that in a program, statements may be executed sequentially. Sequentially means linearly. That is the first statement, then the second statement, then the third statement, and so on. Okay. Then it can be selectively also. Selectively means if you want the first statement to work first, and then the fifth statement, then the ninth statement. Okay. So there is a selection based execution. This is also a possibility. And next is the iteratively. Iteratively means if you want to repeat the certain set of steps. Okay, so basically, a program statement can be considered in these three ways. Either you want the statement to be executed line by line, okay, sequentially, or if you want the certain set of selected statements to work, so you will go for the selectively. And if you want the certain set of statements to be repeated again and again, so you will go for the iterative execution of the statements. Okay. Now, every programming language provides constructs to support sequence selection or iteration. So it is not necessary that if you're using Python programming language, only this language is having this specification that you have to use this sequential and selection or iteration method of flow control. It can be in any programming language. Okay. So all the programming language provides these constructs to support the sequence selection or iteration. Now let us discuss what is meant by sequence selection or iteration constructs. Now first thing is the sequence. Okay, again I have told sequence means when you are going to discuss about the flow of the control in linear way, that is the first statement, then the second statement, and so on. So it is mentioned here, the sequence construct means the statements are being executed sequentially. This represents the flow of default flow of the statement. Every Python program begins with the first statement of program, each statement in turn is executed. When the final statement of program is executed, the program is done. Sequence refers to the normal flow of control in the program and is the simplest one. That is, you can see here, this one was the statement 1, and then you moved on to statement 2, and then you moved on to statement 3. So first is going to the next statement, then second, then it is going to the third statement. So this is sequential flow. This is known as the sequence construct. Okay. And the next is the selection. So the selection construct means the execution of statements depending upon the condition test. That is, if you want to create a selection, okay, that means the selection should pass through a condition test, that whether you are selecting this or not. So that only it is saying that if a condition evaluates to true, a course of action, a set of statements is followed. Otherwise, another course of action, a different set of statements is followed. Okay, that means you are saying that if the condition is true, you are going to follow the first set of statements, and in case the statement gets false or the test condition becomes false, you are going to follow the next different sets of statements. Okay, so this construct, selection construct, is also called a decision construct because it helps in making decision about which set of statements is to be executed. Now if you are confused about the selection, you can say that suppose you went to the shopping, okay, and in case of shopping, if uh, the parents, if you are along with your parents, okay, and if you are a boy, then the parents will go for different set of colors, okay, and if you are a girl, maybe the combination is for different set of colors. That is, generally the boys prefer the black or the blue color, and the girls will prefer purple or the pink color. Okay, there may be a case. So according to that statement, you can say that if the boy enters the shopping complex, he'll be choosing the blue or black color, and if the girl is going to the shopping market, then she will be choosing pink or purple color. Okay, so this is basically a condition, the selection. So that means whenever you are talking about the Python control statement, if in the test condition a certain set of statements prevails that it is going to be true, then that statements will be followed, and if in case it becomes false, there is an alternative set of statements and that will be followed in that case. Getting it? So it all depends upon the true or false. Don't worry about anything right now because we'll be discussing with the examples also. Right now we are going with the theory part, but later on we'll be discussing the examples so that it gets clear. Here you can see the flow of control has been shown, the selection construct. In this what happens, first you are seeing here that here you are having the condition, okay. Now if the condition is true, then this set of statements is followed, this another block of a statement, okay. In this statement 1 and statement 2 is there, and this is another block of a statement, okay, and it is also having a statement 1 and statement 2, okay. Now if the condition becomes true, you are going to follow this block of statement, okay, and in this you will go for the statement 1 and then the statement 2, and then you will reach the end of the loop, okay, and that is the end of the program. But if in condition it becomes false, then you will go for this block of statements, and here the statement 1 will prevail, then statement 2 will prevail, and then finally you will end the program. So this is the way of telling the selection construct. Okay, next is the also it is mentioned that you apply decision making or selection in your real life. So many times, example, the traffic signal light is red, then stop. The traffic light signal is yellow, then wait, and if the traffic light signal is green, then go. Okay, so you can see an example is mentioned here. Suppose you are standing at a traffic signal, and if you are seeing the red light, that means you have to stop. Okay, in that case, the selection statement will go for the stop. But if the traffic signal light is yellow, then you have to wait, obviously, and if the signal light is green, then you are free to go. Okay, so it is also a decision making selection statements. Okay, so that you can say that you can think of many such real life examples. So these real life examples will only help you to get to the programming situations. Okay, so basically programming scenarios are based on the real life situations only. So if you are getting any programming sequence, that means it must be means influenced by any real life solutions. Okay, that's why we are studying programming also, to make it in such a way that it can be related with the real life cases. Okay, now next is the repetition or iteration. That means if you want to repeat certain set of statements. Now see, The iteration construct means repetition of a set of statements depending upon the condition test. Again, it is going to pass through this condition test. Now earlier, if the condition test was true, it was going to the certain set of statements. But in this case, it may be a condition that if the condition is true, that loop can be means repeated iteratively. Let's see what I am saying. Till the time a condition is true or false depending upon the loop, a set of statements are repeated again and again. As soon as the condition becomes false, the repetition stops. The iteration construct is also called looping construct. Now see here, it is mentioned that this is the condition, okay, and this is the test condition, and it can result in either true or false. Now suppose if the condition is false, it is saying the exit condition. So if the condition is false, you are going to the different part, okay. Now the iteration is not allowed after this. If the condition becomes false, the iteration is not allowed. That means you are out of this loop, okay. But if the condition is true, you will execute the first statement, then the statement 2 will be executed, and again it will go to the test condition. Now if the condition is false, now the loop will exit. But if the condition is again true, you will again to go to this statement 1 and statement 2, and this condition will be repeated again, and again it will go to the test condition. Now again it will test whether the condition is true or false. If the condition is false, it will exit the loop. Otherwise again it will execute this statement. So it will keep on executing till it becomes false, okay. Or you can say till the time it is true, it will keep on repeating itself, okay. Once it becomes false, it will execute the loop. Now if the condition keeps on becoming true for infinite times, so this loop will become an infinite loop. That is, it will not terminate any time, okay. So you have to be very careful while using this condition, that do not cause any infinite loop, okay. Now see, the set of statements that are repeated again and again is called the body of the loop. Okay, so the statements which are being executed repeatedly. So statement 1 and statement 2 was repeated every time. So this is the loop body. Okay, the condition on which the execution or exit of the loop depends is called the exit condition, that I have told already, that this is the test condition or the exit condition. You can find many examples of iteration or looping around you. For instance, you often see your mother cook chapatis or dosas or appams for you. So in that case also, if suppose you are matching this with the real life situation, so you can say that put rolled chapati or dosa batter on flat pan or tawa, turn it 2-3 times. Once done, take it off. Okay. So it is mentioned that repeat the above steps, step 1, 2, and 3 for the next chapati dosa. This is looping or iteration. Now suppose if your mother is cooking, okay, and she is making the first chapati, so what she will do first, she will put the rolled chapati or dosa batter on the flat pan or tawa. She'll put it on the tawa. Then she will turn it 2-3 times so that it gets cooked properly. And once it gets cooked, she will take it off from the tawa, okay, the flat pan. Now if you want the second chapati to be made, it will follow the same procedure again. Again that rolled chapati will be put on that flat pan, and again it will be 2-3 times turned to make it cooked properly, and again when it is cooked, it will be taken off from the pan. Then the same steps will be repeated for the third roti, and it will be kept on, means created this loop for the certain set of times till the whole batter or the whole ingredient you are having to be made is completed or finished, okay. Suppose she want to create 50 chapatis, she is having accordingly the batter, and she will keep on doing this thing until the batter is over, okay. So if she will complete the 50 chapatis quota or the batter is over, she will stop doing this, okay. So this is the iteration statement or the looping state. Getting it? Is the real life example. And there are many other examples for repetitive work, like you are saying about the washing clothes, coloring and coloring book, etc. So different things can be used, okay. Now every programming language must support these three types of constructs as the sequential programming execution. The default mode is the inadequate to the problems we must solve. So Python also provides statements that support these constructs. Coming section will discuss these Python statements if that support selection, and for and while that supports iteration. So in the next part, we'll be discussing about the if and for and while loops. Okay. So that's it for today, students. We'll be discussing it in the next video lecture. Till then, take care.